Hey guys, it is Katie Cakes, and today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up of 2019. I just got out of the shower, so my hair's all wet. But I wanted to make this video because tomorrow I have a bunch of stuff that I have to do, so yeah. So I read 9.5 books in February. So not too bad. I'm hoping this month to read a couple more. So yeah. The first book that I finished this month was Last Sacrifice by Richelle Mead. This is the last book in the Vampire Academy series. There is Bloodlines, but I don't really like that series, so I usually just read the Vampire Academy series. As you all know, I love this series so much. I've read it 10 times. I read it every year, which typically always seems to be in January. I guess I go through like withdrawals. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta read it. So I read it again. And every time I read it, honestly, it's like I'm reading it for the first time. I love it that much, and I am always able to pick up things that I either didn't catch or I like forgot about. So yeah, I will continue to read this series forever. But I love it. If you have not read the Vampire Academy, I suggest you do. Like I said, I've read it 10 times, so it's pretty good. And then this year, for the first time, I read the Vampire Academy Ultimate Guide. I didn't really like this. I don't think I'll ever read it again, but I'm going to keep it because it is another part of the Vampire Academy journey that I love. However, I will not be reading it again. It's basically like Cliff Notes to me. It goes through telling you what happened in each book, and like it tells you about characters and stuff like that. I thought it was gonna be a little bit different, but it wasn't, and that's fine. But yeah, fortunately, I am not gonna read this again. And then let's see. I read some of them on my iPad, so yeah. Okay. So next book I read was 2 by 2 by Nicholas Sparks. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I'm gonna read my reviews off of my Goodreads that I did for these, just because I can remember like what happened in the story, but I feel like I just like wrote it better on Goodreads. Yeah, so I felt that this story lasted way too long. For those of you that don't know, this book is about a couple that has a daughter, and they end up getting into money problems like everybody generally does at one point in their life. And the husband decides that he wants to start his own business instead of working for a boss that he hates. His boss has pushed him to the edge of his rope, and he doesn't think he can do it anymore. So he quits his job to start his own business, but he told his wife that their life would never change, or like that she wouldn't have to stop spending money and stuff. So they end up going into the savings that he had accumulated, and so then she decides that she's gonna get a job, and she ends up working for one of his old bosses, I think it was. And long story short, they end up having an affair, and then shit hits the fan from there. I didn't give anything away in that, so yeah. It was a good story, but I mean, I'm never gonna read this again. Am I glad that I read it? Yeah. I mean, it was a good story, but I'm not gonna read it again. when I was reading this book, I was honestly really hoping that the wife would die. Because I hated her character so much. But yeah. And it also kind of fell short for me because I loved the first chapter. I thought it was so funny. It was about, like, their daughter being born, and I was just like, oh my god, this is going to be a great story, and then the wife is going to die, and it's just going to be a sad story about him trying to cope and, you know, find this other woman, but that's not what happened. But the first chapter was just hilarious. It was awesome. I loved it. Yeah, that's basically what I said. I actually didn't even need to read my Goodreads review because I just kind of remembered it all. But yeah, 2 by 2, I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. I read this for the Heartbreak Hospital in Romanceopoly, I do believe it was. Yeah, Heartbreak Hospital. So this was the first read I did for Romanceopoly. And then I read, I kind of like, so I did my board, right? So the colored in spaces are the ones that I rolled and completed. I'm reading this book right now, so I didn't finish my mystery book. But I rolled them all, and then I just kind of like decided what I wanted to read from there at one point. What point? So then I did the fire station one, which was Off the Clock by Roni Loren. So this book is about these two people that meet in college for like, she's volunteering for a sleep apnea thing, and the guy is making audio porn, I guess, essentially. It's for some class, I don't remember what it was, but they end up hitting it off. She had a crush on him for like years. He didn't know who she was, and yeah, then it like fast forwards to, I think it's 8 years later. He is successfully running the sex therapist wing at this rehab center, and she was what was she doing? I don't remember what she was doing, but she ended up needing more money to be able to send her brother to college, and her boss recommends her to the rehab center to be a sex therapist as well, and then the two end up rekindling their like friendship that they had, and it just kind of sparks from there. I loved this story. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I'm going to be looking into the author to see what other books are being written. The only thing that I would have changed is that it would have been longer, but I would read it again. And then, like I said, when I'm reading books for Romanceopoly and it turns out to be a series, I will be reading the second one. So I did read, it's not really gonna, okay, well, it's by the hour. Let's see. Oh my god, just give me the screen. No, it's not gonna give me the screen. Fine. For whatever reason, it won't let me turn the brightness down. But whatever. It's called By the Hour by Roni Loren. It's number 2. Yeah, it was I really enjoyed this one. This was 4 to 5 stars for me as well. I liked this one more than the first one, I think, which is very rare to like the first or the second book more than the first one, for me anyway. But this one was, well, I can't even tell you about it because it'll give away something that happens in the first book. But check it out. It's a really good story. I loved it. I will be looking into other books by Roni Loren, but that was my second read for Romanceopoly. That was the Fire Station. Yeah. And then, funny story, this one I will have to read off of my Goodreads, because it's quite a long review that I did. It's not going to show up, but whatever. So this one was for the Growing Pains Place, which I do believe was just read a young adult novel. I'm not really sure, but I had picked The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness because I had owned the entire trilogy already, and it was one of the recommended books that they had given you. So I decided that I would pick this up, and I hated it. I rated this book 1 star out of 5. And I will be unhauling that series. But yeah, okay, so I am going to read you my review off of Goodreads because I feel like I wrote it a lot better than I can try to explain. Okay, I couldn't get over the writing in this book. It wasn't the way they talked that caused me to hate this book. It was the way the author wrote the book in general. When I read The Maze Runner, they had their own way of talking as well, even had their own language, but at least when they weren't talking, the author kept to correctly spelt words. In this book, the author didn't care and just spelt a number of things wrong on purpose. Even when they were talking, they were spelt wrong. If they were saying the words correctly, would they not be spelt correctly in word form? It's not like they were writing everything they were saying out. I also felt no connection to anyone in this book except for Manchi, which was the dog, because he reminded me of my puppy Marty. It was heartbreaking when he died, but that's all I felt for this book. I feel like everything was explained and there's no point in another 2 books being in this series. The ending didn't even shock me because we needed something to keep us interesting at the end. However, that wasn't the case for me. All they did was run and eat and talk about the noise. I feel like it was very rushed with how long it seemed to take, but on the same side, I feel it lasted too long. Because I felt as though it could have been completely summed up in less than 100 pages. I will not be continuing this series, even though I own them, and will not be keeping these books either. They will be on my next book unhaul, and someone else can have them. Even without the terrible writing and mistakes, I still don't think I would have enjoyed this book, because I feel as though nothing happened. The kid had to run away and found a girl in the woods who ended up following him into this one town. They met this couple that was very nice and let them stay the night, and then brought them to the town they were going to. They were there less than a day and were under attack by the army after the kid. So they ran again and ran into a spackle, which the kid kills, and then runs into the same person that's been following them since the beginning and gets stabbed. Then he gets really sick and his friend gets taken and tries to save her while he's dying. Eventually, he does manage to save her, and they end up on a raft going down the river, continuing their journey to this town called Haven. They find out there that his dad wasn't killed, and eventually make it to Haven, where his friend dies after killing the guy that was chasing them. And then the kid who followed throughout the whole story finds out the army made it to Haven before they did and killed everyone in it. The end. I thought it sounded like a good story, but the writing ruined it, and yeah, sad, really. So, yeah, very strong opinions for that book. I hated it. I will never, ever read that book again. Like I said, it is on my next book unhaul. If it even makes it to that. I don't know when I'm doing my next like my next shopping spree that I'll be going to Fairs Fair. I have all my books there. You guys have seen, I think, pretty much all of them. It's basically just The Knife of Never Letting Go. It's, the Chaos Walking series that I'm getting rid of so far. But yeah. And then I had an author reach out to me on Instagram to ask if I would read their books, and that was Krista Gold. I read 2 of them. I really liked them. I read Shaft first. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I loved that the author included both the woman and the man's narration in the story. I love when authors do that. A thing that did bug me about this story, though, was that the chapters were very short. Like, they were like 1 to 3 pages long, the chapters, and it was just, it felt unnecessary. But yeah, I loved this book. The author did tell me that she is making a second to this series, or second to this book, a longer version, so that will be nice. And then I read The Wallflower. I didn't like this one as much as the Shaft. This was okay. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This book is about this person. Her mom was a famous sex writer, and she died, and the kid ended up taking over her estate and got all the money. She doesn't know who dad is. And then she finds out that her mom was being blackmailed, and now that person is blackmailing her. And yeah, so it was good. I probably won't read it again, but it was really good. I enjoyed it. And then the night before, I finished The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. I read this one for historical fiction, which was Memory Lane on Romanceopoly. I really enjoyed this book. However, I did think that it was going to be closer to the Anne Frank story. So I thought it was going to be like Anne Frank's, like a different kind of Anne Frank story, like following the Jewish people. But it ended up following 2 French sisters. And that's fine. I still really enjoyed it. It kind of reminded me of a mixture between the Anne Frank story and Rabbit Proof Fence. I'm not really sure why, but it did. But I really enjoyed it. I'm probably not going to read it again, just because it's, I don't know. I don't typically read those kinds of stories again. I feel like they were sad enough the first time, and you don't need to continue to put yourself through it. However, if they made a movie, I would watch it. But yeah, it was really good, and I really enjoyed it. And then now, for the only other one that I haven't read yet on my Romanceopoly that I had rolled is Mayfair Space, which is read a historical romance where there is a class disparity. I think I'm actually reading the wrong book. For some reason I thought I had to read a mystery book, so that's what I'm reading right now. Which one is the mystery? There's a mystery somewhere, I think. Class disparity. Oh, I'm thinking of Cozy Corner. Okay, well, then I'm just going to say that last time I rolled Cozy Corner, and that I still have the Mayfair Square on my board. But anyway, I'm reading Truly Devious right now by Maureen Johnson. I'm reading this book because Emma Books recommended it, so I figured I would try it. I'm not really sure what I think about it right now. It hasn't really reached the point where it's grabbing me yet, but I'm going to continue it, so we'll see. But yeah, that is my February wrap-up. I'll see you guys later. Bye.